1 week out, Cody, from Texas starting fall camp. I know that you're busy trying to get your plane tickets and your travel affairs in order to be here in Austin for the kickoff to what is a greatly anticipated 2025 season for the Longhorns. And today we have three burning questions on defense. Before we get started there, let's thank our presenting sponsor here, Man Eye Institute. See Life Better. Make sure and give them a call today, 1-844-WOW-2020, 844-WOW-2020. They are the presenting sponsor of our show here on Orange Bloods Live. We would not be doing it without the Man Eye Institute. So thanks so much to them with all their Central Texas locations. We're so lucky to have next level LASIK, which is only available with two providers in the whole nation. So make sure and give them a call if you're looking into LASIK or whatever your eye and vision needs. 844-WOW-2020, the Man Eye Institute. See Life Better, our great presenting sponsor. All right, Cody. I had this idea, and we're a week out from fall camp. I was just thinking about, like, well, when we get out there, what are we going to be looking at? What are our biggest questions? And I started out on the defensive side of the football. And oddly, my first one that I came up with was about a guy that hasn't really played much at Texas, and that's Colton Vasek, because Vasek, if as everybody knows, was from Westlake, the same school as Ethan Burke, and was generally thought, just kind of consensus thought of as a player who was a better prospect than Ethan Burke, right? Same position, same school, but Ethan Burke, a 5'8", 4-star, Colton Vasek, a 6'0", 4-star. But he comes in, gets injured as a freshman with a back. I believe it was a back. And then after that, it's just been shoulder injuries after shoulder injuries. We finally heard towards the end of last season through the playoffs, he didn't play much in the playoffs, but behind the scenes, they said that he was kind of making a move. And then sure enough, has shoulder surgery after the season that kept him out of spring football at the very time that guys like Lance Jackson, Justice Terry were coming on board.
It was a labrum, right? Labrum.
Yeah, it was a shoulder labrum. I think that's kind of the labrum is part of the show. I guess there's a hip labrum too, but right.
The labrum's a tough one to come back from. So I'm it's the positivity around your question and the topic at SEC Media Day when people brought up Colton Vasek. Like I think it was a great question for you to ask. Is it do or die time for Colton Vasek? It feels like it is. Like it's a super blue chip. It's when it catches super blue chips. He talked about he's a 45th ranked player in America. Like. To me, it's 100% do or die time. Where's he going to fit in that pecking order?
Well, it's really up in the air. He picked it he didn't pick it, but he found himself in an unfortunate time to miss spring football when you have Lance Jackson, when you have Justice Terry coming in, and Justice Terry was another guy I had a big question about. Is about like, well, is he going to play defensive end? Is he playing tackle? We'll talk about him in a second. But as far as Vasek, Anthony Hill, whenever we asked him who some big surprises might be on defense this year, Vasek was the first name out of his mouth. All the reports are that Vasek is healthy, he's going to be ready to go, and it's not like. Even though we're talking about a position of the strong side defensive end that backs up Ethan Burke, it's not like that's a position that doesn't play much. Ethan Burke was in that role last year, and you can think back to how much he played behind Barron Sorrell. We're talking about 243 regular season snaps. That was the 15th most on the team. So if you think about, 11 starters, that's like one of the heaviest rotation backups or depth pieces on the whole team based on the way that was deployed last year. So it's just, do you think that we're going to go out there? We're going to see Vasek lining up. You think it's going to be number 91 and then number 92 right in behind him? Do you think that Lance Jackson's done enough over the spring to where they're going to have him listed over Vasek to start? Is Justice Terry, are they just going whole hog on him playing defensive end as a true freshman weighing 268 pounds? It feels like to me, it's kind of like he's been out of sight, out of mind, and people have forgot about the fact they were dancing in the streets whenever he first committed.
It's interesting. It's like you said, it's going to be one of the first things we're going to be looking for, but I'm not sure we're going to get that answer right off the bat. It just kind of feels like a bottleneck situation. Who was it last year? Was it Justice Finkley that, like, on the first week, I know it was dumb, but I brought it up, I think, last year of like, listen, we know Colin Simmons is going to be Colin Simmons, but he still has to show up, do the work, get through him. we love Lance Jackson. We love Justice Terry. I'm not sure either of those guys has quite the expectation that we had for Colin Simmons a year ago. Like those guys still have to battle through, get past Colton Vasek, assuming Vasek is has no hitch in his get up from the beginning of the season. We know he's been obviously banged up the last couple of years. I mean, the positive I would say is that he's a redshirt sophomore. So I don't think it's crap or get off the pot situation for Colton Vasek. I think obviously him being from Westlake, this is a guy that we don't really have NFL projection on today. Yes, we think it's in the realm of possibility down the road, but it's a guy that you could potentially see on this roster for the next 3 years, 25, 26, and 27, and fulfill those 5 years. But as far as Terry goes and Lance Jackson in that conversation, would it shock you? And you've been obviously covering the team for a decade longer than I. Would it shock you to see, and I guess the coaching staff's different now, but would it shock you to see them continue to utilize, rotation on these two edge spots where we know that obviously Trey Moore's there. We know how they used Barron Sorrell a year ago. I think they're going to use Justice Terry similar to how they use Barron Sorrell. Colton Vasek, as long as he's healthy, should meld into that rotation right behind Burke, at least from the jump. Like, I guess in the way I'm getting here is saying I'm not worried as far about saying like, well, Vasek has to, find his way to 250 snaps. I just think he's going to get snaps. It's just about, I guess, how long he stays near the top of that pecking order, doesn't fall behind Lance Jackson and Justice Terry. Would kind of be my train of thought. But again, it's just a super loaded room.
My second burning question was about Justice Terry himself and just about what it means that Texas recruited a 5-star stud defensive tackle, paid probably the most NIL that they've paid anybody at that point in time to come to Texas. And he comes to Texas, he weighs 268 pounds. And clearly that's not drawn up perfectly to hold up against, even like a garden variety SEC rushing attack. Yeah. It's like, with that being said, I think that, the question is, how are you going to use him? Sark has said, we're not paying these big NIL deals to guys who can't come in and play. All right. And I don't know whether that has to do that, whether that was a little bit of a lingering remark about kind of what happened with Brandon Baker and not being able to play him early and having him under the big NIL deal and all the rest, and having to kind of take the delayed gratification with a guy like him, whether that taught them the lesson. But still, it's like, Justice Terry's coming in the class after him when that lesson had been learned. And whether or not it was the genesis or not, that's where we're at, right? Where it started, how Sark got the idea. That's where we're at now. And I think it was where we're at whenever they recruited Justice Terry. So he's going to play. Now, whether it's at the strong side defensive end, Vasek comes into the picture there, of course. Lance Jackson comes into the picture there. I'm wondering if maybe he gets most of his run as like a 3 technique in that same kind of, in those NASCAR packages, the dime package, the dollar package, the stuff wherever last year when they would go from having, say, like, a base front 4 of like Trey Moore and Alfred Collins at nose and Vernon Broughton at the 3 technique and Barron Sorrell at the strong side defensive end or the jack end, right? What they would do is then they would say, all right, we're going to get Colin Simmons in at the buck instead of Trey Moore. We're going to move Vernon Broughton, who's smaller than Alfred Collins, down into the nose. We're going to bring in Barron Sorrell and have him play 3 technique. We're going to put Trey Moore over at the strong side defensive end, right? It's a lighter front. It's a front wherever a guy like Justice Terry, I think, playing at the 3 technique with just really violent hands, good athleticism, explosive burst, a good ability to penetrate. I think that kind of role, like if you're going to use him inside as a defensive tackle, use him in that kind of role. I don't know if it's what the staff's thinking, but it's certainly something that I'll be monitoring closely.
I think it makes the most sense in that. I know week 1's going to be a little different, probably than what we see the following 3 weeks. We might only see, Lance Jackson and Justice Terry in specified roles in that week 1 game against Ohio State. And then you might see that, week 2, 3, 4 against the UTEPs and the Sam Houstons, where those guys get a little bit more run, a little more versatile run across the line of scrimmage, across the defensive line, kind of like you're saying, where you might see Terry lined up in a number of spots. Same with Lance Jackson. And they might just be able to see, because it's obviously the competition's a little bit lower. So it'll be different trying to get into SEC play. And then I think we'll get a real defined view of what we're going to get from those guys for the season. I'm not sure we're going to be able to get that in the first week of practice, but I hope so. But I think the fact that we're having this conversation and being like, well, are these 5-stars going to be able to crack through early on or in the first week of camp? Like that's a massive, massive box to check in itself.
Yeah. And so speaking of 5-stars, my final burning question here is about Jonah Williams. And it's like, if you're talking about infusing young talent, you're talking about the Justice Terrys. How do you get him involved? I was writing it up today, and I'm like, with Jonah Williams, he's this 2-sport superstar. He's played baseball all spring, right? But you think to yourself, well, he's probably behind the 8 ball. But then you also think to yourself, okay, well, this is Jonah Williams. This is a truly special athlete, a truly special player, and a dude who, by all reports and all appearances from when you just saw him playing baseball or heard his interviews there, like very confident in himself. Like a guy that you feel like a dog that you don't feel really good betting against. And so you ask yourself these 2 tough and really diametrically opposed questions about Jonah Williams in 2025, which is, 1, how do you keep him off the field? But then 2, how do you even get him on the field? Right? It's like, because you have Michael Taft returns as a first-team All-SEC preseason pick by the national media. You have Derek Williams coming back, who only on 93 snaps last year generated production once every 4.85 snaps. So that only Collins, now that's a small sample, but only Colin Simmons was better last year, 4.44 snaps, the best that I've seen since I've been doing this, as far as a per snap efficiency rate. And we're talking over the last, 14 years? I've been doing this since 2013, so that makes 20, whatever, 13, 14.
You're old as hell, man.
13, 14 years. That's up there, right? And then, but it's not like we have to depend on that small sample. Even going back to 2023, Derek Williams, for his per snap efficiency, he was the 3rd most efficient DB on the Texas roster behind only Jahdae Barron and Michael Taft. So it's like he's been good. He's an alpha. He plays really well. And then there's the stuff we talked about earlier in the week with Kobe Black. What if he pushes for run playing outside corner, and they got to move Jalen Gilbo back to nickel, and then they got to move Jelani McDonald back to safety. Now you got 3 dudes there. It's like, you got to play Jonah Williams in year 1. My question is that as a backup safety? Or are they going to even rotate safeties in that much? Or maybe he's going to be like some kind of special teams ace? But it just feels to me like, it's got to be one of the bigger storylines to monitor. It's like he's a 2-sport superstar that we haven't seen in football pads yet coming in, and I have no idea how he's going to be used or deployed.
Well, like you said, I think he's going to be one of the best athletes, period, on the field. The special teams aspect's probably the easiest avenue, is just saying, like, like certain coaches will talk about how important the 3rd team is. They look at his offense, defense, special teams. Some just ignore it. If you look at it that way, those are
bad coaches that ignore the 3rd phase of the game.
I know, and there's like, oh, that's special teams, but you can really hear the difference in coaches when they make a point to say, like this guy has to be on special teams. This isn't just like, oh, this guy gets a water break. Like, no, he has to be out there. And in this situation, you want to get your best players, your best athletes on the field. I think Jonah Williams is going to give you that versatility, not only on like the return game or the blocking or tackling, like being a guy, an up back that can, you can use in just special ways, potentially fake punts, different things like this. So you have to get him on the field that way early. I think that's the easiest way. The second thing I would say is, why not? Is this a situation where we heard, like they told DeAndre Moore, well, Jordan Whittington was on campus, like, get in that guy's back pocket, be his shadow, do everything that guy does. To me, it's like, is that potentially what they tell Jonah to do for, so far this summer? And then as soon as fall camp starts, like, be in Jelani McDonald's back pocket, because he's got a guy that's kind of built like you, a versatile DB like you, like, be his shadow, be his back pocket, be everything that Jelani is on the field. Of course, learn from everybody else that's out there, because you're 6'3", 215 pounds. You can kind of be the ultra versatile player on the back end. That would kind of be the angle I'd like to see, if that's something that, or a way they use him. One thing I'll ask you from one comment that was on your column over on Orange Bloods, Ketch put this out there. He said Jonah Williams might be the team's third best player on defense. I don't think that's hyperbole. And I'm like, well, that's a great projection. I think I agree with you 100% in projection conversations. Would you, Alex, be shocked if we got to like week 8 and Jonah's, what role would he be in for us to get to that point where we would say, well, yeah, I mean, we saw it with Anthony Hill, we saw it with Colin Simmons, and it's actually Jonah Williams, not Justice Terry or Lance Jackson, that he's the guy that's all of a sudden just like, well, we can't take him off the field. Like, what spot is that?
Oh, I don't know. And it brings me back to the enigma, right? And the question that's impossible to answer, right? The two questions that are just diametrically opposed, right? Unstoppable force, immovable object, just meeting right here in the middle. How do you get him on? How do you keep him off the field? And how do you get him on the field?
Yeah.